So next on my ancient DNA match journey is Mesolithic II era ancient Greek woman with ceramic goods, ID Rev5, Central Macedonia region, Greece. I matched 0.12%, genetically closer to this sample than 67.56% of other genome link users. This sample is from an early Neolithic female individual unearthed at the Ravinia Corinu archaeological site, which is located in a small valley in the Pieria regional unit of Central Macedonia region, Greece. Based on the ceramics, the site was dated to the early and middle Neolithic period. The inhabitants of the settlement built semi-subterranean houses. The excavated pits were rich in ceramics, ground stone tools, chipped stone tools, animal bone remains, and marine shells. The shapes of the buildings were often rectangular. The Rev5 individual was radiocarbon dated to be from 6438 to 6264 Cal BCE interval. She was between 30 to 40 years old at the time of death. DNA extraction was performed from her petrous bone. Her mitochondrial DNA was determined to be X2b. The X haplogroup has been found in 2% of Europeans and 13% of North American Native Americans. Besides this, it's found in the Middle East and North Africa. The X2b haplogroup was found in European Neolithic populations, farming and sedentism. The Neolithic Revolution first emerged in two Middle Eastern centers, the Levant and the Iranian Zagros Mountains, from local hunter-gatherers who adopted settled life subsistence, domesticated wheat and barley and animals, mainly caprines. Later, the Levantine farmers expanding into Anatolia gave birth to the Anatolian farmer population, together with strongly bottlenecked local forager population. Later in the Neolithic, the homogenization between the three Middle Eastern centers increased with gene flux from Iran farmers into central Anatolia. Paleogenomic studies proved that the transmission of farming from Anatolia to Europe happened by demic diffusion, large-scale migration of Anatolian farmers into Europe, and the first settlers created the early Aegean farmers. At the beginning of the migration, both the cultural and genetic interaction with the autochthonous Western hunter-gatherers was very limited. Functional analysis of the LCD gene proved that the early Aegean farmers were lactose intolerant but carried the derivative alleles for the SLC24A5, SLC45A2, which are associated with reduced skin pigmentation. However, they did not have the derived allele for the lighter eye colour. On the principal component analysis, the Rev5 individual is positioned near the northwestern Anatolian individuals and also near the present-day Sardinians and southern Europeans, suggesting that later migrations that shaped Europe had little effect on the South European populations. So how do we connect? So I said, I've got a 0.12% DNA match with Rev5. My mtDNA is J1C3. How do we connect? So sharing a 0.12 DNA match with an 8,500-year-old ancient individual is a fascinating genetic connection. It tells an incredible story of shared deep ancestry, but it also contains two distinct types of genetic data that you have to look at separately: your autosomal match and your mitochondrial lineage. So the autosomal connection, this is the DNA inherited from all of my ancestors across both sides of the family tree. And that's brought down to me from my mother and father. So the math, in modern genealogical terms, 0.12% is a very small amount of shared DNA, roughly equivalent to a fourth to sixth cousin. The reality of ancient DNA, however, because Rev5 lived roughly 8,500 years ago, you cannot be her actual fifth cousin. Makes sense, doesn't it? Over hundreds of generations, DNA gets heavily diluted. Instead, your 0.12% match means you have inherited identical by descent IBD segments of DNA that survived unchanged through a massive network of ancestors. Wow. The 0.12% match is living proof of your shared prehistoric heritage. No direct maternal connection. Rev5 belonged to maternal haplogroup X2b. Your maternal haplogroup is J1C3. Because these are two completely different major branches of the human mitochondrial tree, you do not share a direct maternal line with Rev5. Even though your direct maternal line split long before her time, both haplogroups J and X are famously known as Neolithic marker haplogroups. Both lineages heavily expanded out of the Near East Anatolian region alongside the spread of agriculture into Europe. The ancient common maternal ancestor. To find the woman where you direct maternal line and or Rev5's direct maternal line meet, you have to travel back to the Upper Paleolithic period, roughly 30 to 40,000 years ago. You both share a common maternal ancestor and haplogroup N, the ancient mother lineage from which both the J and the X branches originally evolved. So I wanted to have a look, like what would life have been like for this lady? So based on archaeological and environmental evidence from Ravinia Corino, here is what her daily life would have looked like. Home and living spaces, subterranean living. Rev5 did not live in a stone house or mud brick cottage. Her home was a semi-subterranean pit dwelling dug into the earth, likely roofed with timber branches and mud plaster. Intimate community. The settlement was a busy open-air cluster of over 100 of these pits spread across a small valley. Privacy was minimal. She lived, slept and worked in tight quarters alongside her extended family. Living with the dead. Death was handled with domestic intimacy. When family members died, they were buried directly inside or just outside these active pit dwellings. Rev5 spent her life walking over and living alongside the resting places of her ancestors. Daily labour and diet. Her days were dominated by the care of animals. Ravinia Corino holds the largest collection of early Neolithic animal bones in Greece. Rev5 would have helped herd milk and tend to sheep, goats, pigs, and cattle. She would have participated in intense seasonal labour, clearing plots in the valley, planting primitive grains like ear corn and emmer wheat, and harvesting them using wooden or bone handles fitted with sharp flint and obsidian sickle blades. Cooking was a rugged outdoor task because pottery at the site was primitive and not yet used for boiling pots. Rev5's meals were prepared over large outdoor earthen ovens or open roasting pits. She ate heavily roasted meats, and her community frequently cracked open animal bones to extract the calorie-dense marrow. Physical appearance. Walking through a village, Rev5 would have stood out to a modern observer with her dark skin, brown eyes, and dark hair. She was likely shorter than average modern women, with a muscular build shaped by a lifetime of grinding grain, carrying water, and farming. Early farming life was brutal on the human body. She likely suffered from joint wear, from repetitive physical tasks, and may have experienced periods of nutritional stress or infectious disease, which spread more easily in permanent settlements than in nomadic camps. Her world was devoid of luxury goods. She wore clothes likely made of animal skins or basic woven plant fibers. Her tools of trades were utilitarian: bone needles, clay loom weights, and stone scrapers. Her social world, Anatolian roots. Rev5 grew up in a culture that still maintains strong genetic and cultural ties to Western Anatolia. The stories, language, and spiritual beliefs she shared around the fire would have been carried across the Aegean Sea by her recent ancestors. The lack of rich grave goods or grand chiefly houses suggest her society, which was largely egalitarian. Wow. Status was, I can't get these words like, status was likely based on age, wisdom, or lineage rather than accumulated material wealth. And next on the Mesolithic 2 DNA match is the man of Karanovo culture. IO698 is the sample ID, Orpan, Bulgaria. It's only 0.1%, but apparently I'm genetically closer to this sample than 69.16% of other genome link users.